What's up guys, my name is Fran and once again welcome back, and in this video we're going to be checking out this guy here. This is the Spark by DJI. So the Spark is actually the latest and greatest creation coming out of the Chinese manufacturer DJI. It's actually their smallest and most portable drone they've ever released. That's right folks, it's actually smaller than the DJI Mavic Pro. The Spark also happens to be the cheapest drone that DJI has ever released, with a retail price tag of about $499. Now I do know you can probably pick up a Phantom 4 Standard or Professional for around that price tag or even cheaper nowadays, but when we say cheapest, we're actually talking about the entry price tag to the market. Considering that this is one of the cheapest drones that DJI has ever released, I did have a couple of questions when I was looking into picking one up. My first question was, does this drone still hold up to the same quality standards and features that DJI most notoriously releases in their other drones that cost upwards of $1,000? And then also, what are you really getting for that $499 price tag? Well, let's take a look. So let's do a really quick unboxing of the DJI Spark. Within the actual packaging itself, you'll find the DJI Spark sitting inside of a really nice carrying case, which I think is really nice and convenient that they included it. And then in this other package over here, you will find a user guide as well as a USB micro cable and a USB wall charger. So we're actually going to start on the back of the drone and work our way to the front. So taking a look at the back of the drone, you will notice a Spark flap, and right under this flap you're actually going to find a micro USB port as well as a micro SD card slot. Now these slots should be pretty much self-explanatory, but the SD card slot is for you to stick an SD card so you can capture and record all of your footage and bring it over to your computer at the highest fidelity possible. And then the micro USB port is going to be for firmware updates, manual, connectivity to the actual drone, as well as if you didn't buy the Fly More package, this is actually going to be the way you charge your battery. Now moving on to the back and the bottom of the drone, you are going to notice the DJI Intelligent Battery. Now this battery has a capacity of 1,480 milliamp hours, and this gives you the ability to have about 10 to 15 minutes of flight depending on wind conditions and other variables. Now swinging around to the bottom of the drone with the battery still installed, you will notice a couple of contacts. Now these contacts are actually to be used with the quick charging port. DJI does have one of those available where you can charge 3 batteries at a time, and this is how you would do it, by laying it on top similar to a wireless charger. Now looking above the battery on the actual drone body itself, you will notice a number of other sensors. Now these sensors are going to be proximity sensors, which allow the drone to use computer vision to detect whether it's near an object, more specifically near the ground or your palm, as you do want to make sure you land the drone non-violently to not cause any damage to it. Now looking outwards in the 4 corners of the drone, you will notice a couple of LED lights. Now these lights are actually going to be used for a number of things. Most DJI drones do use lights, of course, to give you status indicators, but the DJI Spark uses them more specifically to give you a little bit more information while using gesture mode. We'll get into that a little bit later in the video though. Now swinging around to the top of the drone, you will notice that it does have very similar propellers to the DJI Mavic. Now that's pretty nice and convenient by making the drone a lot smaller and allowing you to fold it up, and they lock in place really nicely, and they just seem to work really well. And then finally swinging around to the front, you do have a very capable camera that sits on top of a 2-axis gimbal. Now I don't know the exact specs, I'll leave them here on the screen, but the camera is capable of shooting 1080p at 30 frames per second. Now while that's not as good as something like the Mavic Pro or even the Phantom series in shooting in 4K, I think DJI did that specifically because they did not want to cannibalize the DJI Mavic itself, and making this a little bit more of a selfie drone or a consumer drone opposed to being a more prosumer or professional drone. Now looking just above the camera, you will notice another proximity sensor. Now this sensor has some extra capabilities. Not only is it capable of detecting objects, but it also can detect human faces. Now I didn't look too much into this technology, but it seems to be pretty cool, and I'm pretty excited to see what DJI can do with this and gesture control, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in this video. Okay, so as you may or may not have noticed during the unboxing, the base model of the DJI Spark at least does not come with the DJI remote. So you might be asking yourself, how the hell do you control the DJI Spark? Well, DJI wants you to use one of 2 options. Option number 1 is to connect via Wi-Fi and control the drone through the Dji Go application. Now, if you own a previous generation DJI drone, you might be very familiar with this application, but for people who aren't, I'll just do a really quick run through. So once you connect to the DJI Spark via Wi-Fi, you are then able to go inside of the DJI Go application and you'll find the interface. Here you can control the camera options as well as switch between pictures and video. You can also do things such as live streaming to Facebook or even streaming to RTMP. You have the ability to set maximum altitude, flight distance, check battery, change Wi-Fi signals, and much more. I'm not going to go too much into depth with this, but it's a very capable application. Now another option you have in the DJI Go application is to enable gesture controls. Now this is probably one of the biggest selling points that DJI is boasting with the Spark. Now the DJI Spark is not the first DJI drone to actually have gesture controls. We've seen it in the Phantom 4 as well as the DJI Mavic, giving you the ability to fly and take pictures, create a Y with your arms or a picture frame with your fingers, and actually the drone will take pictures. But the DJI Spark, due to that new sensor that I mentioned earlier in the front of the drone, actually take this a little bit to the next level. Once you've enabled gesture controls through the DJI application, from a powered on state, you can then hold the drone in front of your face, double tapping on the power button in the back, and then once again looking at those LED lights that I did mention a little bit earlier in the video. But once those lights flash from light green to a dark green or a solid green, the drone has then detected your face. You will then hear it spin up and you give it a little flick to toss it up in the air, and the drone will now become airborne and hover right in front of your face. Now another really cool gesture in the DJI Spark's gesture controls is actually the palm mode. Now if you put your hand out in front of the drone in a solid palm, you will notice that you can control the drone just like a Jedi. Moving your hand up, down, left, and right, the drone will follow. Now I'm not 100% sure how useful this could be. In my opinion, it's a little bit more of a gimmick because no one wants to take a picture or anything like that with their palm in front of it, but it is really good for positioning the drone for a picture, then using the gesture control of actually, once again, creating a picture frame with your hands, and you'll notice again the LEDs flashing in front of the drone, and then in a couple of seconds it will take a picture. Now there are a couple of other gestures that I just can't remember right now, and I honestly wasn't really able to master, such as the wave to fly away and then wave to come back modes, but there was another really cool one, and that is the landing function. So if you put your hand out in front of the drone while it is hovering and it's not detecting your face or tracking your face, of course, the drone will then land in your hand, and that's pretty cool if you're not in the best of areas to land the drone. Now there has been quite a bit of controversy around the internet about the gesture controls. Now I will admit they're not exactly perfect. A lot of it depends on the actual lighting. What I notice is, especially indoors or in poor lighting, the gesture controls just work really poorly. This drone is really meant, even though they do say it is an indoor drone, it's definitely meant to be flew in well lit areas, especially when it comes to those gesture controls. Okay, so finally let's talk about the image quality of the DJI Spark. Now while it's not the greatest out there, it definitely is really good for what it does. I mean, it's only a 1080p sensor, it's not a 4K sensor, and I think DJI did that by design. They didn't want to cannibalize the sales of the DJI Mavic Pro. I think for taking pictures and selfies and you know, that type of stuff, this drone is actually perfect for that as far as the camera goes. People's skin and you know, an actual person looks pretty decent in 1080p, but once you get really high up there and you try to grab some detail, maybe from the clouds or some buildings or just landscape, that's where you really can appreciate a 4K sensor on a drone, and this drone just isn't cutting it at that point. DJI also seemed to gimp the video mode on the drone. Now while you can do simple things like adjusting white balance, it doesn't seem to be as robust as something like the Mavic Pro or the Phantom series that I've had in the past. So you don't have you know, picture profiles such as Cine-like and D-Log. There's a couple of things that are missing, like, you know, adjusting sharpness. Now I'm hoping this can be unlocked by getting the DJI remote controller, which I don't exactly have, so I might be wrong on this fact, but it seems like as far as the video mode goes, you can't really change the frame rate. It's just locked in at 1080p 30 frames per second. Okay, so to wrap this all up, I do feel like the DJI Spark is a really great drone at the $699 price tag. I don't really find the $499 base model worth it, just because of the short flight time and the lack of the controller and overall lack of controls, the short range of Wi-Fi. There's a lot of difficulties you're going to run into, and you're going to just end up wanting more battery life, more everything, and because of that I can't recommend the $499 package. But for the Fly More package that comes with all the extras, I think the DJI Spark is a great drone. It's really nice. It still doesn't stand up that well in the wind, very similar to the Mavic Pro, but this one's a lot worse. But overall I do feel like the DJI Spark is a really great drone. Who's it for? Well, it's definitely for the drone enthusiast, somebody who wants to get into drones. I would definitely say the beginners. I wouldn't say for kids. even though it is a little bit cheaper drone, it definitely is still pretty difficult to fly and maintain, and it's a pretty expensive toy if you ask me. But if you got it, go ahead and spend it. I definitely think it can work for the kids, but I definitely think it's more for the content creator or somebody who just likes to take a lot of selfies or really cool pictures, or even for the family member who, you know, you guys go on a family vacation and you just don't want to have to bother a stranger to hold your phone and take a picture of you. You can get this up in the sky really easily and quickly, a lot faster than something like the DJI Mavic, and you can go ahead and take your little selfie, land it in the palm of your hand, and keep going, and not have to really sit down and carry a lot or do too much to grab a really great photo or take a really nice video. But what do you guys think about the DJI Spark? Do me a favor, let me know in the comment section below. Also, right down there, if you like this video, do me a favor, slam on that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already subscribed. Once again, guys, my name is Fran. Thanks so much for checking out this video, and I will see you guys in my next one.